God loves to use weak people. The Bible is filled with examples of how God used imperfect, ordinary people to do extraordinary things in spite of their weaknesses. If we are honest with ourselves, we can see weakness in our lives. Whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, we all are bundled with those things that we fall short in. In today's devotional, Rick Warren walks us through how we can let God use the weakness in our lives for His glory. First, we admit our weakness. If we want God to use us, we need to know who He is and who we are in relation to Him. Simply put, God is perfect and we are not. We need to stop pretending that we have it all together and be honest about where we fall short and admit that to Him and ourselves. Second, we accept and boast in our weakness. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me." Paul boasted in his weakness because they caused him to rely on God. When we accept our weaknesses, God will begin to use them to tear down barriers of arrogance and independence, replacing them with humbleness and dependency on Him. He takes our weakness and turns them into strengths. Oftentimes, it is our greatest weakness that God uses to build His greatest ministry. Third, we honestly share our weakness. This requires that we be vulnerable, and vulnerability can be intimidating and scary for a lot of people. When we reveal our failures, feelings, and frustrations and fears, we risk rejection from others. But God gives grace to the humble. The more vulnerable we are, the more of God's grace we get. When we open up our shortcomings to others and stand on that grace, we encourage others to say, maybe God can do that for me too. Finally, we see God's glory in our weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:10 says, "That is why, for Christ's sake, that I delight in my weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecution, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." When we see our weaknesses, we fill our hearts with praise towards Jesus, because we know that it is He who understands us and helps us in our weakness. So instead of seeing ourselves as self-confident, self-reliant people, we should see ourselves as trophies of grace, won solely by the blood and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross. As you go throughout your day and throughout the rest of this difficult time, remember what God told Paul and what He tells you today in 2 Corinthians 19:9. "For my grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in your weakness.